Okay, tell me if you've ever said this before. Crap, that sounded just like my dad. How do you break those generational patterns and stop passing down the pain that you never chose to begin with? Welcome back to the Secure Husband Podcast. Bruce Abbott, certified professional coach and founder of SecureHusband.com, the podcast where I help good men get unstuck. I remember thinking growing up, I'm going to do things differently than my parents. And my parents, they're wonderful. I love them. But they had a hard time themselves. And when you're growing up in that environment, you start to develop coping mechanisms, whether you realize it or not. It could be unintentional, but we bring these patterns with us into our life as we get older. And maybe we live a life completely different than the one that we grew up with, but somehow, some way, those same emotional patterns show up. The same outbursts, the same withdrawal, silence, shame, the same anxiety. And if I'm being honest, I would get terrified because I would see those start to manifest in my children. Now, unintentional or not, we grew up feeling pain, neglect, shame, anger, all these emotions. It was just our way of coping. We didn't understand it when we were little, but that's the coping mechanism that we developed to survive as a child, and we bring that with us into adulthood. You get to a point where you become an adult and you feel like, I'm not going to do that. But those generational patterns, they're carried in your nervous system. The good news is you can break the cycle. I had a coaching session this morning where one of my guys was saying, I'm trying so hard not to be my dad when I react to situations. See, he grew up with a father who he yelled, criticized, rarely showed affection. That's a common pattern that a lot of my guys found themselves in through childhood. And even though he swore he would never do that to his wife or kids, he still would catch himself reacting, slamming doors, yelling at kids, pulling away emotionally, shutting down, numbing out, maybe on his phone. Or he was telling me that when things would get tense at home, bourbon was his escape. And he talked about, my dad used to do that. Dad would become belligerent when he would check out drinking his bourbon. He made the joke, he's like, oh my God, I became him. Even though I didn't want to, I told myself I wouldn't. That's the truth of generational trauma. It's not just about what happened in your childhood. It's about the coping strategies you learned to survive that childhood. It sabotages your marriage, your peace, your identity. See, if your dad modeled anger as control, maybe you use anger to try to gain control, to feel powerful. You feel out of control. You feel like you have no say. If your mom was somebody who shut down emotionally, maybe you find unavailable women familiar, and you chose that in a partner. If you felt love had to be earned, now you people please to feel safe, and here you are. But you're stuck in the very patterns that you said you would never repeat. But when I talk about breaking the cycle, it's not by fighting it, it's by going right through it and healing it. The first step of the Secure Husband process is noticing where you're still living from the past. This is hard because it means getting really honest about how much of your day-to-day emotional life isn't actually yours, but it's something you inherited. And it doesn't always manifest in rage or anger or yelling or explosive behavior. You might see it manifest in over-explaining, sending paragraphs of texts to your wife when she's being distant. With over-explaining, you do this because growing up, you might have been punished or felt punished if you didn't justify yourself. You had to explain everything to survive. Now in adulthood, you're still trying to earn safety through explanation. When you finally sit down and just look at this, where did I learn this? And you realize, this isn't me, it's just how I learned to survive. Then you can start to break the pattern. But you have to see the pattern first. You have to notice first. Just notice, where in my life am I still responding like the wounded boy? Not the man I want to be. Not to shame yourself, but to just wake up and realize the story that you're still living as an adult. Once you see it, you can choose something else. We make that choice. We choose to stop trying to outperform the pattern, and we just start healing it. We lean into it. This is always tough with guys who are very high achievers. I've noticed that with my coaching clients. See, they'll try to overcompensate for the way that they were raised. So if their dad was controlling, they try to be ultra flexible. If mom was emotionally chaotic, they try to be stoic and strong. And a lot of my guys try to do this in their marriage. They try so hard not to be like their dad, but they have no idea who they actually are. So you're either performing perfection or collapsing in shame. You just don't know which one to do. You don't know how to just be a secure man. In this step, you're going to stop performing against a pattern and start healing a wound underneath. You're going to choose not to try to fix what my parents did to me by becoming the opposite. I'm going to become someone new. For me, that's power. That's agency. That's leadership. You're leading yourself. It's not reactivity anymore. Every podcast, we look at that inner child. Look at that little boy inside of you who inherited that pain. This can be emotional. It requires facing what you've avoided for decades. I have my guys do visualization exercises. Picture yourself as a young child. Maybe you're sitting on a couch as a kid, listening to your parents fight, your mom screaming, your dad cold, silent. He'd just sit there frozen, helpless, alone, terrified. You're watching this. You're hearing this. And then maybe you used to pretend to be asleep so they wouldn't drag you into it. Now as a man, what do? You became the fixer. You weren't going to just sit there frozen. You weren't going to sit there silent. So you explained everything. You would absorb the pain of others so that you wouldn't be a source of anyone's discomfort. But inside, that's exhausting. And you're still carrying the emotional weight of that little boy. Just imagine sitting next to that boy on that couch and asking, what does he need from me today? See, this is the beginning of healing. You can't break the cycle if you don't tend to the one who lived it. And that's that little boy. That little boy that absorbed those circumstances as a child. Your job now as an adult is to be that loving parent, to meet that boy, to listen to him, to protect him, to reparent him with strength and compassion and love. See, that frees him. And when you free him, that's how you free you. And you understand that pattern? It's not about you. It was about your parents' wounds. Because in most of the guys that I work with, they had loving parents. They loved their parents. Their parents loved them, but their parents were wounded. And so guys carry this belief that if my parents didn't love me the way I needed, if they were cold or absent or addicted or harsh or distant or shaming, something must have been wrong with me. And that belief will poison your life. Because when your wife pulls away, it confirms that you're unworthy, confirms you're a failure. If your boss criticizes you, confirms you're not good enough to do this job. Your parents may have loved you, but they didn't have the ability to show you that love. That inability wasn't about you. Again, it was about their own unhealed wounds. Because your dad didn't yell at you because you were bad. He yelled because he never learned to process anger in a safe, secure way. And your mom didn't criticize you because you were flawed or bad. She did it because her own worth was conditional. The pattern didn't start with you. It probably started generations before you, but it's in you right now. And you get to make a choice. You can be one who ends it, not through blame or shame or guilt, but through healing. And you dialogue with a higher power. Replace those false narratives with truth that you are worthy, you are loved unconditional. There's nothing you have to do to be perfect to earn love, and there is nothing you can do that will have that love ripped away from you. And then you dialogue with that higher power to find out what is my next loving action, and you take radical responsibility for breaking that cycle. You didn't ask for that childhood. You didn't choose your parents. You didn't cause the pain that got passed down to you, but now you are holding that torch, and you got two options. You can keep repeating the pattern. You can blame the past, hurt the people you love, including yourself, or make that choice. This ends with me. When I became more aware of all of this, that's when I started to make change, because I would find myself repeating these same behaviors. I would yell at my son, angry, screaming. We would get into screaming matches. But then after a while, I started to be able to self-soothe. I held space. I didn't make it about me. When you can lean into the pain and stop avoiding it, but really lean into it, you can transform from it. And you get to start breaking the cycle. And that allows you to become the man that you needed as a little boy. It's the father that your father wanted to be but couldn't. It'll show up in your parenting of your kids. But really, it's about reparenting yourself. It's about becoming the version of you that's calm in conflict, honest when moments are tough. You bring a gentleness to your own shame. You start to soothe your nervous system, get courageous, setting boundaries, becoming secure in your own worth, no matter what the situation is. That breaks the generational patterns, and you stop performing your way through this life, and you start becoming a man who no longer needs to escape himself, because your peace is your responsibility now, and your legacy is your responsibility now. It's not to blame, but you're now finally strong enough to lead. Because if you've been reacting from patterns that you don't want, you're hurting people that you love, you're hurting yourself, collapsing in shame. You swore you'd be different. You didn't cause the pain, but you can choose to end it, and you heal yourself. It's not because you're trying to prove that you're better. It's just you don't want to pass down that pain that was never really yours to begin with. And you can become someone who heals for yourself and for the next generation. I hope this podcast helped you out. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give me a review. That would really be appreciated. And share this podcast with someone who you think may need to hear this for their healing. If you need help getting unstuck, that accountability, reach out to securehusband.com and set up a free consultation with me. 30-minute conversation, no sales pitch, no pressure, just a conversation to see if I can help you out. And I'll see you again in the next Secure Husband podcast. Thanks for listening.